All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, for the onset of the Biden administration, Soccer and I have done our best to try to evaluate it on its merits, give credit where warranted. Soccer did that last week with regards to semiconductors, and heaved scorn when appropriate, as we have repeatedly with regards to the $2,000 checks. I'm sure some of you think we've been too kind, some think that we've been too harsh, but a good portion of the left of center has actually been willing to give Biden a lot of leeway and even accolades. Mehdi Hasan at MSNBC wrote that Biden had been better than he had expected, writing, "Forget 100 days. Biden's first 10 days looks more like the fulfillment of a progressive wish list than a great centrist betrayal. Neither Bill Clinton nor Obama began their presidencies with such energy or ambition." Justice Dem spokesperson Waleed Shahid is quoted in that same piece proclaiming progressives are beginning to be heard. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tweeted, "In just the first week, the Biden administration has acted on many of progressives' top asks." Even with the outrageous push to confirm Neera Tanden, plenty of progressives have continued to want to see the best in Biden. The head of Justice Dems went to bat for Neera on CNN, and Elise Hogue, the head of NARAL, progressive activist, did exactly the same thing. In other words, the left was rather splintered in their assessment of Biden's actions thus far. Well, in 24 hours, that all changed. First, we learned that an unelected functionary, that's called the Senate parliamentarian, decided that the $15 minimum wage could not be allowed into the budget reconciliation bill, and Kamala Harris would not vote to overrule this person. When Republicans received a ruling from the parliamentarian that they didn't like, they just fired that one and got a different parliamentarian without really even thinking twice about it. Democrats would actually do the same if they got a decision they didn't like. But the truth is, most establishment Democrats actually like this decision. This is what they were hoping for, because it gives them a great excuse. There's nothing that they love more than a great excuse. Then we learned that Biden had bombed Syria without congressional authorization, just like Trump and Obama before him. Biden sent a letter to Congress with some bullshit justification that the bombs were a matter of, quote, self-defense. Don't you all feel so much safer now that Biden has made it even more difficult for the U.S. to re-enter the Iranian nuclear deal? As Will Menaker aptly pointed out, it owns that the president can attack Syria without any congressional approval, but can't do anything overwhelmingly popular like a minimum wage increase without the approval of the parliamentarian and 100 senators. Finally, as if all of that amazing imperialism and selling out the working class wasn't enough, we learned that Biden would do nothing to retaliate against MBS, even though an intelligence report confirmed what was always obvious, that he had ordered the brutal murder and dismembering of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Now, on the trail, of course, Biden had pledged to make Saudi a pariah. Put all these things together and you get a clear as day picture of the same warmongering, human rights hypocrisy, and commitment to working class annihilation. It is a picture so clear that no one with a single brain cell not corrupted by Russiagate and Trump derangement syndrome could possibly ignore it. Congresswoman Omar went from tweeting about checking off the progressive wish list to subtweeting Biden that if you don't stand for human rights when it's politically inconvenient, you don't stand for human rights. If you don't stand with workers when it's politically inconvenient, you don't stand with workers. The YouTube left all weighed in with disgust. Cenk expressed complete disgust at their failures on the minimum wage, saying, "Can we all agree that if Democrats can't get $15 minimum wage passed, they are complete failures?" Sam Cedar called out the Biden White House, saying that if we can't pass a $15 minimum wage, it's because the White House refuses to exercise its power to overrule the opinion of the Senate parliamentarian. Mainstream liberal journalists, people like Nick Kristof, were outraged as well. He penned a blistering column headlined, "President Biden lets a Saudi murderer walk." Jake Tapper weighed in to blast the hypocrisy of those who would have been outraged about similar inaction against MBS and a Trump admin, tweeting, "Yes, hi. I see all you folks willing to look away from the brutal slaughter of a U.S. resident and Washington Post columnist because you like this president." Dana Bash even grilled Biden press secretary Jen Psaki on the same topic.
We have made no secret and been clear we are going to hold them accountable and on the global stage and in with direct actions.
Yeah, I hear you, but you say hold them accountable, and it just doesn't look like that when it comes to the notion of justice. And the question is, do you feel like justice has really been done when it comes specifically to the Crown Prince and his role in the brutal murder of a journalist because the journalist was working on stories that were challenging him?
Well, this is a horrific crime. and the president has said that himself. I will reiterate that here today. One of the reasons the State Department put in place what we're calling the Khashoggi rule is because we believe that anyone who threatens journalists, who threatens dissidents, should be held to account.
Even some establishment Democrats were disturbed by the unauthorized Syrian bombs. Senator Tim Kaine and Congresswoman Jackie Speer joined progressives like Ro Khanna in decrying that unilateral action. And finally, at least one left writer, TNR's Osita Nwanevu, was ready to abandon the Democrats and electoral politics altogether, saying of their failures that maybe it's enough to cost Democrats control of Congress. Maybe it isn't. It's not obvious that it matters. Now, I disagree. I still think electoral politics matters. But you certainly can't blame the millions upon millions of Americans who have decided it doesn't and opt out of the whole game. In any case, if you were hoping that the middling Biden executive orders and inadequate, but hey, at least it's something stimulus bill were a preview of bigger and better things, you were wrong. The caveat-laden first month was likely a high point. The excuses and terribleness of the past few days are, in fact, the long-promised return to normal. At least now, it seems like everyone realizes it. And at Sagar, it really was amazing to watch in 24 hours. Decision at first, we're giving up on the minimum wage. Then, we bombed Syria. Yeah. And then we find out, even though we said we're going to make Saudi a pariah, we're actually going to keep doing the same thing and look the other way on MBS. This is the first time when everyone on the left is on the same page of being like, come on, what are you doing? This is disgusting.
Right. And you know what's crazy, too, is that you turn on the TV, there was not that much coverage of Syria. Almost none. Whenever I saw on the Sunday shows, nobody was really even pressed about it. Wow. I mean, Jen Psaki herself had tweeted about the legal. She's like, what is legal justification for Biden Syria in 2017? It's a great question, one that remains to this day. And yeah, look. I want people to understand, and I've talked with some friends on the Republican side on Capitol Hill who are like, you need to tell your audience, your left audience, it's not that they can't do this. They don't want to do it.
On minimum wage.
Yeah, they were like, look, we had all the scenarios gamed out on our side for Obamacare. We literally fired the parliamentarian back in 2001 on the Bush tax cuts.
Yes.
If you want to do it, it can be done. They simply do not want to do it, and they're gaslighting you with fake excuses. And if you don't want to do it, just admit it. Just say, we don't want to have the minimum wage, we'd rather do it later, or something. Make the political case to the people. But we all know, as you saw the chart in my radar, raising the minimum wage would probably be the most popular thing Congress has done in literally decades. And so they can't stand against it. And so they hide behind their fake excuses. And I just want some sort of honesty in this discussion. And they're just straight up lying. They're lying about this entire thing.
Oh, it's utterly pathetic. You're going to be deterred because the Senate parliamentarian said something like, give me a break.
It's not sacrosanct. It's already happened. They fired them already.
Right. And no one even really objected. It wasn't a big thing. They're just like, okay, well, we're going in a different direction. And by the way, the idea that the minimum wage doesn't impact the debt or the deficit is silly. I think it's debatable. There was a study, the CBO study said it added to the deficit. Other studies say that it reduces the deficit because fewer people rely on government social safety net programs. But there's no doubt that it has an impact on the budget. And the bottom line is, it's not that, look, first of all, oftentimes they don't go as hard as Republicans. That's certainly a thing with the Democrats. But with something like this, they wanted the excuse.
Yeah,
Biden's been saying for weeks, I mean, we talked about this on a call with governors. He told them that it likely wouldn't be in the package.
Well, and
so he's been.
He kneecapped it 2 weeks ago.
He did. He did. He's been expecting this, and he just completely rolled over. And with regards to opposition within the party from Manchin and Sinema, again, you're not even willing to try. You're not even willing to fight to try to put pressure on them to get something that let's be clear, this was a central promise that was made in the Biden campaign, and especially to progressives, and especially with Bernie Sanders when he endorsed him. So their failure to fight, to even try on this, to just immediately roll over because of the Senate parliamentarian is utterly absurd. But yeah, that 1, 2, 3 punch of we're abandoning the minimum wage, we're bombing Syria. I saw someone who tweeted oh, good, we got airstrikes before we got a check.
Yes.
We're bombing Syria and we're looking the other way on MBS, just like every other administration before us would do. That was really a great moment.
I even saw that, according to some of the State Department reporters I follow, that they didn't even ask the State Department for options in order to sanction anybody in the Saudi regime. They unilaterally decided from the beginning, this is what we're doing. So So once again, they talk a big game, and then they do the exact. If you want to know about uniparty rule, there you got it.
That's
on
it.
Saudis and whenever it comes to bombs in Syria.
That is it.
All right, coming up, Chuck Rocha, Philip Wegman, they're up for us on Team Rising. That's next.